Welcome, Coleman Report Live, May 7th, 2020 edition. Lance, so good to see you. It's been a while, my friend.
Bob, you're my brother. It's like I hadn't seen my brother in a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, so it's great to be back on with you.
Great. And Coleman editor, Katie Watucky. Katie, how are you doing out there?
Doing good so far.
And Joseph, I know, is producing. Hey, look, I really want to thank you, too. I know it takes a community, and a lot of people stepped up, and from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate you guys doing that. Anyway, our guest panelist today is John Riosti. He's the community bank reporter with American Banker. John's one of the good guys. Hey, John, are you still active duty, or have you fulfilled all your reserve service?
I have fulfilled everything. I am a free man once again.
You're a free man once again. Anyway, John did a tour. I believe it was there was in Iraq, and then they sent you to Washington State.
That's right. That's right. Don't ask which one was worse. No, I'm kidding. I loved Washington State. That was wonderful.
Oh, who doesn't? I mean,
you have to be somewhere. Get sent there.
Anyway, John. Hey, John, again, and you're one of the village. I appreciate you stepping in every week and helping, man. It's good to see you as well. Okay, let's go to the polls.
It's good to have you back, Bob.
If impacted areas were officially reopened, would you attend at least one in-person conference this year? Interesting question.
Hey, Bob, I was telling Joe before the show and Katie and John that, if you're having one in Maui, put me down as an attendee.
Interesting. I thought it would be, I thought the bottom one would be the winner there. I might attend. I won't be attending any events this year. I think that's a fair. That's a good assessment.
Go
ahead,
Bob. I think if the other bankers, participant lenders are like me, Bob, they're ready to get out of the office somewhere, just anywhere.
Yes, we all are chomping at the bit to that. And there's from eventually years, and they're obviously scrambling, and it's too bad what's happening on that. Go back to the next poll question. Have you stopped processing PP loan applications?
My understanding, Bob, most of the banks I've talked to are still doing some, but certainly the velocity of applications is not there like it was initially, but talked to a couple bankers. And
what's the issue? Is the issue a demand issue? Oh, it's very interesting. Is it a demand issue or a perceived supply issue?
Well, there's been a lot of interesting miscommunication about the PPP funding. John, Joseph, Katie, and I were talking about the fact that there's still over $100 billion of funding available. So, I think that there's still an opportunity for a small business to get a PPP loan, and probably still plenty of participant lending institutions taking applications. But I think we all were told that, and I was a believer, Bob, that this second round of funding might only last 3 or 4 days. But it's lasted much longer and will continue to last.
Well, I think that's great. Hey, John wrote a fascinating article for American Banker regarding the liability lenders may be incurring for these loans. John, what's your reporting?
It's sort of a twin picture. Number one, there was a lot of talk about the lawsuits that were filed almost simultaneously with the start of the program. It started. Bank of America was sued by some borrowers who said that they were being shut out. But those suits seem to have been, there seems to have been a legal answer to those suits. The judges decided that they borrowers really didn't have a cause of action under this private borrowers under this under the act. But what's more concerning, looking down the road about a year, is potential issues with exams and also potential claims for discrimination. This would be different from the suits that the private borrowers filed. These would be suits or complaints people might submit to CFPB. Those, I talked to several attorneys and others. Those could pose problems for banks down the road. If CFPB and other regulators choose to really take a tough look at that, because while those regulations weren't emphasized at all when the law was being put together, there's no exemption from them. So it's it could pose problems.
Interesting. John, give us a PPP 101. This is for my benefit because where are we today with PPP?
I think as Lance kind of indicated, there's still ample funding.
Define, I'm
over.
sorry, I'm going to cut you off. Define ample.
I think it's in the neighborhood of $100 billion.
Wow.
As of the end of Tuesday, the agency put out a statement by the Secretary of the Treasury and the Administrator. So I guess Treasury, it was a joint statement, that 181, maybe let's call it 182, let's round up to $182 billion funding had been approved under the second round. So if I do my math right, 310 billion was the starting point, even with the set aside. That's, that leaves 128 billion. Now, that was as of Tuesday. That leaves all of yesterday and half of today. So maybe that's, down closer to $100 billion, give or take a little either way.
Now you're talking phase
a little
two.
Bit less.
You're talking phase
right.
two.
Phase $2.
Okay, so will there be a phase three?
People are beginning to advocate for a phase 3, but I myself am a little bit doubtful concerning the or looking at the how this phase has gone. I'm not talking about any technical difficulties or others. I'm just talking about how the money has gone and the fact that it's lasted far longer than anyone thought, including myself. I wrote a number of articles at the start of phase 2, sort of speculating on how long the money would last. With most people, most sources I talked to, saying it wouldn't be a week, or it would be no more than a week.
Right.
And by that I mean a work week, not a 7-day week. And here we are,
John, I'm
well
intrigued.
into the program.
John, I'm intrigued by the average loan size. It's down to $80,000. What did SBA expect the average loan size to be, and is that $80,000 seem reasonable to you?
I think they wanted it. They didn't, as far as I know, they didn't put out any target or anything like that, and they didn't put out any new cap, but they just wanted to see it significantly reduced, and that's evidence, that decision by them, or the announcement that they were going to review all loans over $2 million. So that's a signal, a strong signal, as well as the fact that, last week they shut the program down for all but the smallest participants for the evening. And it seems to have worked. The other wild card in this is, as the fintech lenders ramp up more, what effect will that have on the average loan size? I wouldn't be surprised to see it drop more.
Yeah, Bob, one thing, this is just speculation on my part, Bob, but one thing that's happened is in round one, your larger, more sophisticated small business borrowers who have a CFO or uses a CPA, they were there ready with strong applications ready to process. Those guys have already gotten their money, and you're seeing a smaller, less sophisticated small business applicant in the second round, I think, is why the loan size has dropped so much.
Lance, your boots are on the ground. Your feet are on the ground. What is the average disbursement time for these loans?
I think that varies. I've talked to a number of banks. It varies from bank to bank or institution to institution. I think in most cases from approval to disbursement is usually less than 5 days, but I've heard some circumstances where it was more.
Yeah, I mean, that makes, but 5 days is pretty impressive. Very good. Let's see, Lance, what's the next big thing on the horizon?
Forgiveness. Or some people don't like the word forgiveness because, customers are going to call and ask about forgiveness. Actually, it's just the Treasury coming in and paying the banks for the loans, but understanding how forgiveness is going to work, what kind of documentation is required. That's the next big step.
Let's bring Katie into the conversation. Katie, what are you hearing, and when are we going to get the regs on that or the guidance for that?
Right. I haven't heard anything from the SBA or Treasury yet, but I am starting to see this morning Independent Community Bankers of America and American Bankers Association were both advocating for some kind of comprehensive guide because everybody is really needing this. Both the customers and the lenders are really wanting to know what they need to start collecting and how they need to prepare for the forgiveness step. So I hope that we would get one soon. We are hearing some stuff. I think Rubio a couple days ago said that we need forgiveness now, and that's the next step that we need to look at. But so far, I have not heard any news about when exactly we are going to get a comprehensive guide on that.
Lance, this is a technical question. I don't know the answer. Do you know if the final guidance has been issued on how to report these loans? Is the report going to be the same format, and when is it due by the month?
Oh, you're talking about reporting the loans? Well, yes. Everybody, the guidance, they're reporting them on the 1502 reports. And there is an optional way to report it, but that's already out there. I think the only big question that lingers is the forgiveness and what's going to be required there.
Interesting question. Is anybody else receiving zero lender match requests? We haven't received any for
Bob, I haven't had time to pay attention to lender match requests, so I wouldn't be able to respond to that.
We have a couple of borrowers that have told us that after reviewing all the letter information that came out, after they received their PP loan, they want to repay the loan in full. Have you heard how banks are supposed to do that logistically?
Well, on a PPP loan, it's a loan that's booked on your system, so you could take a payoff. Yeah, you can take a payoff on the loan if the borrower wants to pay it off.
Letitia asked, if approved for the PPP loan on a certain date, can the payroll expense be as of that date, even if the loan has not been closed or funded? In other words, if the SBA approval obtained is 5/1, the payroll expense is for 5/1, but the loan is not closed or funded until May 7th. What dates are we using, Lance?
I've done this.
The date where the 8-week period starts is the date of disbursement.
Thank you. Has there been guidance regarding charging accrued interest on those PPP borrowers returning the funds under safe harbor? The answer is no, correct?
No.
Now that's going to be part of that. Thanks for the question, Susan. Shane asked, there's no template for uploading approved loans yet. Is that correct?
My understanding is banks are reporting those on their 1502 reports.
And Kathy asked the question, we are seeing customers wanting to return PP funds, reduce the amount. You've already answered this. We treat it as just a normal loan that you can go ahead and pay it off, right, Lance?
You booked a loan. It's on your system. You can take a payment, a payoff. The amount that you're going to request forgiveness on, or the amount that you're going to request that SBA and the Treasury pay the bank back will be less. But, if I did a $50,000 PPP loan, at your institution and I decided I didn't want it, I can come back and take the 50 and just pay it off.
John, back to you. Any idea when this guidance is coming down? What are your people telling you?
Everyone is I talked to is just a little bit surprised that it hasn't come down yet.
Interesting.
Yeah, that was one of the things we discussed. As I was we were writing the article that came out the other day on May 5th, and it's a little bit, I guess, a little bit surprising given that when you look back to PPP 1, phase 1, those loans have been on the books and functioning for a while now, and it's time to, I guess, I would imagine people are getting very anxious to get the information, and I am as well. And I'm anxious to see how closely it matches, what was discussed when the program was started, because so much has happened. There have been so many negative stories. There have been, so much intervention in this. We've talked a lot. I've written a lot about rules being changed in mid-game, and will that sort of trend extend to the forgiveness as well?
John, what's next after forgiveness? Where are we next on the chart of events?
Well, the Main Street program is gearing up, and I don't know how many people want to talk about yet another government lending program. But as I was talking with some sources yesterday, there's not a lot else going on, according to these people. These people, they track, lending activity throughout the country, and they certainly don't get all of the loans banks made flowing through their systems, but a lot of them do. A lot of the information does, and they're saying that there's just, outside of PPP and outside of corporate activity at the very high levels, a lot of which was sort of put in motion before the crisis started or right at the time the crisis started. There's very little, just if you want to call it normal or conventional lending activity going on, and sort of in the middle section, virtually none. And I would imagine in the small business section, outside of PPP, there's very little lending going on.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah. Go ahead, Lynn.
I was just listening to what John was saying, and this is not based on my experience, but discussion with bankers throughout the country. They've all been so busy with PPP, and I think there is some hesitancy on the part of participant lenders to make loans right now, just because of the uncertainty. One of my biggest concerns, John made a great point. Round one is 4 or 5 weeks, since the initial loans have been done. Many of those borrowers are halfway or more than halfway through their PPP funding, and we're not close to being back to normal yet. So what happens when we get to the end of the 8-week period? They've used all the money. Are they going to have to close again, lay off people again? I don't know. I look forward.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. I don't think, Lance. They're not going to. My overall assessment of what's been happening with SBA and the responses, I'd give them an A. I don't know if you would rate them that high, Lance.
Oh, I think SBA's done a tremendous job, because if you think about the fact that we're looking at 350 plus, we're looking at almost $530 billion. That's more than 12 years worth of SBA lending in a period of about 6 weeks.
Yeah, when we start writing the history books of this, that's going to be one of the huge takeaways, is how quickly the government moved. Hey, John, I really appreciate you stopping by. And I have no issue. I know you're working out of your wife's daycare. I have no issue if we hear a bunch of screaming kids in the background, because I know they're not mine, so I could care less. Just so you know.
Well, maybe I'll appear in person next week if you have me, Bob, and you can decide for yourself.
I just want to let you know I have no issue with little kids running around. I like little kids, especially when I can go here. Go home with your parents. I don't. Our franchise report is available for sale. Please check out that offer. And Katie, I'm going to give you the last word. And is there anything you want to say?
I think we're kind of just mostly waiting on the news for forgiveness. We're hearing, you know, the Senate's looking for some more oversight and things like that. But until there's really any solid news, I'd like to just kind of wait it out and see what's happening.
Very good. Lance, it's good to see you, my friend. We'll see you all tomorrow. Thanks for joining us.